to What's in the Box, episodes of horror with Donna and Eric. I'm Donna,
And I'm Eric.
and today we're talking Howling 3 by Brandner. I always thought it was Bradner, B-R-A-D, but it's B-R-A-N-D-N-E-R, Brandner. Um, I was
Yeah,
trying to
this
actually, yeah, I was trying to find it on Goodreads, and I was spelling it Bradner, and it wasn't coming up, and I'm like, it's got to be on here.
right. Yeah, that doesn't feel like one that would slip through the cracks. So
And I'm like, oh, I was spelling his name wrong this whole time.
yeah, it's the one thing I don't like about Goodreads is how unintuitive it is. If you
Mm,
don't know exactly what you're looking for, it will never suggest
yeah,
anything close to what it is.
yep,
Yeah, it's a pain. A lot of
yeah,
things. I have a lot of issues. I mean, Goodreads is cool for certain things, but sometimes I'm like, man, they've made this so difficult to navigate. So
yeah, yeah. So Howling 3 um is just a quick synopsis. Basically, it takes place after the Drago fire. It doesn't have the same characters in it as you would have read in books one and two. And basically, there's a young man who's found in the woods, and this psychotherapist, I believe she is, and the local police chief um, are trying to figure out the mystery of this kid. And then, of course, there's some murders happening.
mhm.
So it's definitely not anything like Howling 3, the movie. So if you've never read the book, don't expect it to be like the third movie,
Yeah,
which,
any of them actually, right? Because they don't do,
yeah,
and none of them fall. I think
yeah.
Howling 5 or 6 follows the first book, and then that's
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. So there are no returning characters. You don't get Chris and you don't get I forget what the woman's character, Karen. You don't get Karen.
Right.
These are all completely different characters. You
I was
you
going to
may
ask
see,
you, there was one character I thought might have been a returning character, the father, Malcolm's father.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. May have
Did
been,
did
but
we ever actually get introduced to him, or is he just considered a townsperson and we're just a townsperson?
yeah,
Right.
yeah, I don't know, because in this book it sounded like he was the leader,
Right. That's
but
kind of
that
the
name
vibe I was
was,
getting.
yeah, but that name wasn't familiar to me. Um,
And that makes sense. I mean, this is a
yeah,
he set it up really smartly in the way that he could write this book for a cash grab, but it's unique enough that it's he did a good job with it, I think. Overall,
yeah,
I enjoyed the book. I thought it was good, and it has enough familiarity with the first two books, mostly the setting, that you don't feel completely lost and out of place, but at the same time, some of these characters are they're cookie cutter characters. So
yeah, yeah. You have the macho man, and then you have the woman who's smarter than she should be for that time period, the therapist. So
yeah, I thought the best part about her, the doctor, was when she's thinking or when they're doing anything, she's supposed to be this well put together, calm, you know, um, voice of reason.
mhm.
And yet, every time she interacted with anybody, she was always yelling
Yeah.
and on the edge of losing her mind
Hmm.
and her temper.
Yeah.
But everything else told us that she was supposed to be this other thing,
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
just thought, well, this is hilarious because what they're telling us her actions are telling us differently.
Right,
So,
right.
but she was a
Yes.
fun character, I thought.
Yeah.
I thought I almost feel like it's like he tried to make tension between her and the sheriff, so that then there would be that weird
Right, right. Yeah.
spark for
So,
the relationship, and they could have actually been way more level-headed with each other and still had a
mhm.
relationship. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, you're right. It definitely has that 70s,
Hmm.
early 80s vibe of men-women relationship where it's kind of, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
at each
So,
other's throats.
right. So Holly, who's the psychotherapist, she gets kind of assigns herself to this young man, Malcolm, when he's brought in from when he's found in the woods. Um, and then there's of course I forget what his name is, um, Sheriff Ramsey, and then there was that weird doctor, Pastory. Here we
Yeah,
go.
yeah, it was like Percy or Passery or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's of course this bad doctor
There always
Um,
is.
there's always bad doctor, and I really enjoyed this one. It was a really fun to read. The whole scene with the freak show where
Hmm.
Malcolm was working with Bateman,
Yeah.
Bateman, I think his name
Yeah, but
was.
he called them Bates short for short, like
Bates.
a
Yeah.
nickname. Yeah, it was an interesting. Well, so let's just talk about that. Let's go back to the beginning. So what we have here is initially we have a kid goes to the hospital and he's on the verge of becoming a werewolf through puberty or whatever,
Hmm.
and there's murder and all that stuff. So that's a huge section of the book, and so that's where we get introduced to the doctor and the sheriff, and that's where so we know that they're central to the story. And then you have the story where the other evil doctor takes him away, and then we're introduced to the main werewolf character that's going around killing everyone trying to find the boy. So
Hmm.
that pulls the doctor Holly and Sheriff Ramsey into the story more. And then Malcolm gets away and disappears, and that's it. The sheriff and Holly, they have no clue what to do. And then he adds another completely different tie-in story a year later. He's
Yeah.
with a traveling circus, basically, freak show and whatever else, carnival rides, all that, you know.
Yeah.
And then that pulls all the characters back into it. But yeah, he could have easily had it. I mean, it would have been a terrible ending, but that story was over with them. And then we're introduced to all the Carnies and William or Mark, now Malcolm, and then all that stuff. So he does a very good job of fleshing this book out and making it so that it's a nice length
Hmm.
without just being dumb filler, I
Yeah.
guess is where I'm coming at. But yeah, you're totally right with every aspect of it played a very important part, and at no point were you bored reading it.
Right. And the section where, so basically what happens is, um, at the end of the first book where they go and they set the barn on fire with all the
Mm-hmm.
werewolves in. So that's when everybody like scatters. The survivors from Drago scatter, and
Right.
Malcolm was one of those survivors. He took off, and he ended up
Living in the woods, right?
living in the woods. He got caught. He was living in the woods, and then he got caught in a bear trap.
Mm-hmm.
And he was found by this man Jones, who took him in. And Jones was like a loner, and he lived in the woods by himself. Um,
Now I know he doesn't live in the woods by himself, but he was very a Tony Clark
yeah,
character.
yeah,
So yeah, that's what I
yeah,
would imagine if Tony Clark was out there living in the woods. Real
yeah.
nice guy, helping everybody out, very
Hmm.
natural.
Yep. And
So,
so he stayed with Jones for a while. And then they were on the way to take him into town because Jones was like, "You have to go into town. Somebody's missing you." Um, and then, spoiler alert, Jones gets killed, which I was very pissed off about.
but I liked how they set it up. It was a
Yeah,
good way of doing it, and it tied it back to the trap, the two idiots
yeah.
with the trap, and so.
Hmm. Yeah. So then the just they end up, these two idiots that were hunting find the boy, and he ends up in the hospital, and then the whole ordeal starts
But at the
happening.
same time, the main werewolf finds the boy.
Yes.
And so that's when we're introduced to the fact that the kid is something special, I think. I don't think before that we really were given. At that point, we just thought he was lost in the woods, I think. Right? He
Yeah.
hadn't done anything, no changing, nothing weird. So now we see that there's
Well, the only
main
weird
werewolf.
thing that happened was he healed from the bear trap really
That's right. So we
fastly.
knew that there was that
Yeah.
aspect to it.
Yep.
But to see that a Drago survivor was coming for him,
Yep.
and that dispatches with one of the hunters, ties the sheriff back into it because now he's looking for the boy. Well, they're trying to figure out how the boy is assigned with the murder. There's two
Hmm.
dead bodies,
Yeah.
so they have to figure all that out. And so, what's funny about the whole thing is that these are all people that live through Drago,
Hmm.
and of course they don't want to admit what happened during Drago. But there's that undercurrent of people that do believe in the werewolves and the monsters and stuff. So you have a really fun, especially because it's pre-internet, and then you're like, so okay, so then everything's word of mouth, everything is the telephone game. So who,
Hmm.
by the time you get to that point, who knows what they're telling you. So
Yep.
it's an interesting study on how people in isolated, you know communities might act. And this isn't like a populous section of California. This is out in the mountains and the
Right. Yeah.
woods and stuff. So I thought he does a really good job with that, because you've got a very grounded sheriff who is not going to admit at any point that this is what's going on, and then to watch him have to accept it and kind of slowly turn to the
Yeah.
point where he's using silver bullets and stuff,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
admitting, hey, nobody's going to believe a word of this, so we might as well just stop pretending that we're going to follow law.
Right.
So
Yeah. And I thought it was really interesting the way they did the author did the flashback to um Malcolm's life before he was brought to the
yeah,
hospital.
initially I was annoyed with it, but you're right, it was a good information dump, a way to do it. So
Yeah. And it was great because even though you were given this information, there was still a lot of information that was missing,
yeah.
you know? Like, I don't know about you, it's been quite a while since I read, we've read one and two, so I really don't have all the details in my head, but from the way he was remembering things, it almost, I was thinking in my head, Marcia was his mother. Were you thinking that?
Yes, because now we know who his father is, right? And
Yeah.
at the end of the book, that lady Luna
Yeah.
is a spitting image of the villainous werewolf lady from the first two books.
Yep.
I kept waiting for them to describe the streak of gray, and I was like, wait, she died in two, I thought. So then I'm trying
Yeah.
to think of that because that's who it was, but really it's just a younger version of her. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're 100% right. I think he is the child of those two, which is amazing because I think it was book two where it was in book two where they're trying to say that it was difficult for werewolves to have.
Yeah. Yeah. I just can't remember because I remember Malcolm mentioning that he has green eyes and his mother, he remembered a woman who used to live with them. Um, and she had green eyes, and I can't remember what Marcia's eye color was from the other books.
Oh, I think it
Um,
was green. Yeah, I think
was
that
it?
was the striking thing. Dark hair, green eyes. Then she
Yeah.
had the accident where she got burned, and then she was
Yeah.
disformed, and then the streak of gray in her hair.
Yeah.
The thing that muddies the water is that he gave the father green eyes too.
Yeah.
And so they kept describing those werewolf eyes as green. And I thought that was interesting too, because we really don't get a lot of werewolf action in this book.
Yeah.
You get a
Yeah.
little
Definitely
bit.
don't.
It was almost like, hey, I need a whole bunch of people killed. Werewolf drops in, kills a whole bunch of people, and then goes on. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, I need this guy taken care of. Boom, werewolf takes care of him. That's
Yeah.
what
And
it
it
felt
was,
like in this one.
yeah. And it was very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not premeditated, but it was very, I don't know how to say it. Um, but it wasn't just a werewolf out there willy-nilly killing people. It
Oh
was
yeah, yeah.
very
Everything was,
like there
um,
was a reason why
yeah,
Derek
yeah. I think, yeah.
was going around killing people. Like he was going after
Right. It was,
the
yeah, for sure. I mean, they're definitely. I mean, it was a fine line because technically, killing people when you're a werewolf will draw attention to you.
yeah.
So I mean that doesn't make a lick of sense. So he has this control, but
Hmm.
also at the end he's talking to Malcolm and he's like, hey, these people are who cares? They're just people.
Yeah.
There he has nothing but scorn for
Yeah.
humankind. And so I guess I could see to him it was just like, okay, tell me what I need to know, and if you don't, I'm just gonna kill you like a bug, and then I'm going to the
Yeah.
next. And he didn't even care, I guess, that he. So it did change that way because book one they were hiding from humans. They don't want people
Hmm.
to know they're around. This book he doesn't seem to care enough.
Yeah.
He wants the kid, and then he'll worry about the hiding again or whatever they're doing. But I don't even feel like they were hiding as much as they were just not. It was almost like they were segregating themselves from humanity. Like
Yeah.
they're not what we are, and we don't need to be around them, and we
Hmm.
can use them for food. They're
Yeah.
cattle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So, but yeah, it definitely wasn't like just I'm just gonna kill because I'm hungry. Like
yeah, oh yeah, everything was about getting the kid.
yep,
Tell
it
me what
was
I need to know, and if you don't, I'm going to kill you. If you're in the way between me and the kid, I'm going to kill you.
yep.
It was in fact, he shows an amazing amount of restraint by just taking Holly instead of just killing Holly.
Hmm.
To try and it's funny. He's trying to bargain with the kid, but then as soon as the kid starts to bargain, he's like, "No, you don't get to bargain. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm in charge." I was like, "Well, you set up. We're bargaining. Bargaining. There's a
Yeah.
kid. Holly's
Yep.
here, so
Yep.
just kill her and then you're set." So, the only thing that I thought was sort of questionable is the sheriff shot the lady in the hotel room. They go to the hills. he comes out and then they're leaving, but he's not even. So we can't tell anybody about this, these dead bodies and all the stuff that happened because nobody's going to believe us. I was like, you still got a dead woman. You're gonna have to come up with something. I want another chapter or two of how much
Yeah,
BS you're gonna come up with to explain the dead chick. And I don't know, did she start changing back after he killed her? Because it didn't look like when the two werewolves kill each other, they don't change back.
right.
It said they just left the beasts there and then they wander off. So
Yeah,
it makes me wonder if she changes. If she doesn't change, you might as well just say, yeah, werewolves here. You're
yep,
just sure. But in
yep,
the first two books, they did change when they died, didn't they?
yeah, yeah. They
Yeah.
did.
So
Yeah, but
I
I
think
was
this
waiting.
guy knows how to write a good
Yeah,
werewolf story. He does a really good job with action. He does a really good job with the whole thing.
yeah.
This one's more like a coming of age almost,
Oh
it
yeah,
still
yeah,
got
for sure.
some questionable things, a little weird here or there, but overall, I think this guy knows what he's doing when it comes. I thought all three of his books were.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I was, let me tell you, it was tense there for me when Pastory was at talking with Bates
Oh yeah,
to buy Malcolm, and I'm like, don't you do it, don't
I know,
you
yeah.
do it.
And they set it up really well where he was like, kids no more use for him. This guy needs money.
Yeah,
He's going to get paid a ton of cash just as here's the kid kind of thing. And he doesn't really have to, he's not really doing anything but just pointing, here he
yeah,
is. And I thought, yeah,
yeah,
for sure he's gonna, but then it does show you the quality of character and how you can
yeah,
easily misjudge somebody um and how quickly the doctor, and it just kind of shows you how Weasley the doctor is. He misjudged every single person in the books,
yeah,
and he used nothing but manipulation and false power to get what he needed throughout the whole thing. And I thought that was weird that here's a guy, this doctor, and he's the whole reason he's studying this kid is because he thinks he's a werewolf. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like, well, that's kind of weird.
yeah. They didn't really explain why Pastory got the interest in him in the first place. Like, okay, yeah, they described where sometimes his face would change a little bit, or his hair would grow, or his eyebrows would get more bushy, or something like that. Um, but they didn't like, you know, say it wasn't spelled out why Pastory automatically started thinking werewolf.
Right. It did
Um,
seem like a leap because most of these people are very grounded. And like we said,
yeah,
every time we read one of these, it's like you understand. Like, I mean, my mind always goes to the most crazy stuff, but I'm always also thinking, well, that's crazy, because of
hmm,
my imagination. These are unimaginative people who
yeah,
at this time wasn't this was into the 70s, early 80s. That was a peak period of psychiatric help and stuff. I mean, they were way more into this is all medical, in your head kind of
hmm,
problems, not you can turn into a werewolf. So
problems. Yeah, yeah. And I love the character of Holly because she's like, you know what? I'm just gonna drive down to this like random town and like get a room and go and see if I can find Malcolm. Uh, she was like, I'm just gonna go by myself.
yeah, and it doesn't matter when this was or when it's set, it's still insane. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's like, yeah, it's cool that you independent and all that stuff, but you're chasing werewolves. So
yeah,
maybe bring a friend,
yeah.
bring
Right.
somebody, bring
Bring
a witness.
somebody. And then she goes up to Pastory's clinic there
Yeah, just totally,
by herself.
I was like, this guy is, and that's the other thing. This guy is crazy enough to steal a child from a hospital, even though he did it through proper channels. He basically stole this kid, and she's like, oh, he'll be totally reasonable when I get there. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously he's not reasonable. He stole this kid. I was like,
yeah.
but
And then
at the same time, I totally get it. I know people like Holly, so I was like, yeah, it was refreshing to see some of this stuff play out. More importantly, it played out properly.
mhm.
Like, she went into a dangerous situation and she was very close. If a werewolf hadn't have burst into the room, terrible things would have happened to Holly.
Oh
And
yeah.
then this story is completely different. In fact, then it becomes Howling One, and then she's in
Hmm.
a country trying to recoup from some terrible things. So
Yeah.
I did enjoy that aspect of that period. It's like he's got this insane werewolf thing going on, but at the same time, everything else feels very grounded in reality.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy when a writer can do those two things well.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed how I don't know about you, but for me, I was going back and forth for Derek. I was kind of like, oh, he's going to be a nice guy. He just wants his
Yeah.
kid, you know? And it just kept flipping back and forth. I was like, he's only killing because he's trying to get his kid and, all this stuff. And then at the end, I'm like, oh, he's just an asshole.
Yeah, and the bigger part is and unfortunately, when you see or how like packs and stuff work, when he does get the kid, there's no way he's gonna let Malcolm. He immediately needs Malcolm to be cowed,
Yeah,
and he wasn't just because he wasn't raised in that environment. So
yeah,
there was immediately when they get together, you kind of feel like, oh, this is only going to end with something terrible happening to one of them at least,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's another thing is I guess it kind of shows us how alien the werewolves are too, the ones that are actually, because the woman was excessively sexual
hmm
and to the point of ridiculousness. Um,
yeah,
and so the humans were like, this doesn't make any sense. Malcolm doesn't think it makes sense, even though he's game for more than the sheriff was. But in their world, all that is part of what it is.
right,
They each one uses whatever they have to be their status within the pack, and so that was an interesting look too to see how this group of people, werewolves, act as the pack versus how in society we use our, you know, whatever we're ingrained with
yeah,
to be
yeah,
polite and follow the rules and all that kind of stuff.
yeah. I thought the logic though for why they sent the kids away from Drago was kind of weird. So
Yeah.
there was only little kids in Drago, and then when I guess when they hit a certain age, they send them away for education. Why can't they have school at Drago? I don't know. And then when they're close to puberty, I guess when they're getting ready to change, they bring them back. So, with everything that happened with Malcolm not growing up in the werewolf community, not knowing the alpha role and knowing that he's, oh, this guy is the leader, I should
Mm-hmm.
just let him do what he needs to do and just follow his orders. So it kind of didn't make sense why they would do that because they're sending their babies, their kids away to go live with the humans, I guess to learn to interact with humans, but
Yeah, that'd
that
be the only thing is they have to interact somewhat. So
yeah,
if you just raised them as werewolf people, they'd be very aggressive
yeah,
and they wouldn't be able to understand what was going on. I guess I'm with you.
yeah,
It did seem a bit odd. Feels like you could teach. You would assume that's what some of the lesser werewolves, lower pack would be, and just put them in charge of it and have them teach these kids what they're supposed to do.
yeah. And I'm sure
But
there's plenty of humans that like know about them because they have to have some kind of human, I don't want to say run fields, but you know what I mean?
right, yeah,
You know,
but I guess maybe not until
maybe. Yeah,
they have the few that are capable of being in, like the first book, they had the ones that were friendly to Karen when they got there. She played cards with them and was at the shop, and they did all that
yeah,
stuff. Those ended up being werewolves. So maybe some of them were just those are the lesser pack. They're the ones that are in charge of interacting with humans and doing all that stuff. And then you have and we got a sense of that with the original lady, whatever her name was in the first two books.
Marsha.
Yeah, she was very animalistic with everything,
Hmm.
and they played by different rules, but there were other ones that didn't. So that were more humanized, I guess. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely an interesting look, and I bet you we're digging way deeper than this guy meant for anybody to dig.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I,
I
yeah,
enjoyed
it's
this one more than the first two. I really did.
I think it might be yeah, I think it was a little tighter for sure. The first one's great because it introduces them and it's fun, but if we really were to be honest and take a step back, I think the first movie handles the whole idea better than the first book did.
Yeah.
And then, wasn't Joe Dante the director, and he said that he just basically said we kept the title and threw everything away, and then we kind of wrote it from scratch. And so, it's nice that he had the groundwork, but those first two weren't bad. Let's put it this way: these three are the best. I want to say the best werewolf books we've read. I
Yeah.
can't
Oh,
think
for
of is
sure.
there any,
for
Trying
sure.
to think if anything else jumped out that was great. I think these were fun reads
Hmm.
overall. I enjoyed all of them, and I think I do think you're right though. I think the third one might be the best. Um, the characters were a little better. I felt like the second one was forced upon us, like dealing
Yeah,
with Karen again and the guy and the whole thing down in Mexico. It added some more layers to it, and that was fun, but it became more of a revenge
yeah,
novel and less of about the werewolves and being that.
yeah,
And that was, I know that was what he was trying for, but at the same time, I mean, they were werewolves. Like that could have been like a chapter. We could have had a short story to tie up book one, and it should have just been werewolves destroyed Karen, and that was it.
yeah.
And instead of going the way they did, and then, but yeah, this one's good, and it was cool because we had the he didn't have to waste any time explaining the town or werewolves or anything. He just
Hmm.
was like, here we are again. Y'all know what we're talking about. And he just was like everyday life and this is what's going on. I do like that. It was nice jump dive right in and you didn't have a bunch of wasted words. So
Yep. Yeah.
it's surprising because I've looked, but I don't think I've done a deep dive. But is he got anything else out there?
He
Or do you think he
does.
does like a bunch of screensplays and writes for TV and stuff?
I think there's another book that he did that's um he did Cat People, the
Oh,
novelization
did
of
he?
Cat People, I
Which
believe.
is perfect for him because yeah, he would
Yeah.
definitely catch that. Um,
Let me just look because I'm pretty sure because I was actually looking up um
I'm just trying to think. I looked at the when I go, and I'm thinking when I go to the used bookstore, I go to the bookstore and I'm looking for stuff. She found a Howling for a while. It was a big deal because it was out of print,
yeah,
and
see, I did it
then
again. I'm on Goodreads and I spelled
and
his
type
last
it in,
name.
yeah. It's like this Barry Grand guy isn't coming up,
Yeah.
um, but I never remember seeing anything else by him. But yeah, now that you say Cat People
Yeah.
novelization, that makes sense, and I think I do remember that. But I'm
Yeah.
wondering if maybe he got pulled into the cinematic side of everything. But
Yeah, he did Cat People, the novelization of Cat People, Walkers, which I'm not really sure what that
you think that's
is.
Skinwalkers? You think he's doing a different? That's
Joanna
that.
was Joanna was one of the dead, but she was brought back to life.
Okay, so it's a zombie novel.
Yeah. Um,
Interesting.
so Carrion, like dead meat. So
Okay, so he does have stuff other than these three
yeah,
Howlings. So I guess we'll have to keep our eye out to see. I like his style. I think he's a good writer. I enjoy the
yeah.
way he structured all three of these books.
This this one actually intrigues me. Hellborn. Astrogoth is risen from the dark night of the centuries.
Hmm,
He is the Hellborn.
it does sound interesting. That's weird.
Yeah,
Okay, well I guess we're gonna have to do some more homework and see about him. But
yeah,
overall, this guy contributes simply because we got the Howling movie,
yep,
and of course Howling 3, Rise of the Marsupials.
yeah.
So right, without this, we wouldn't get that. And so this is the cover I have. I guess this is
That's
the
the
common
cover I
cover.
have. Yeah,
I like it, and I like it, because the other there was two teeth on the second one, and then
yep,
whatever the first one had. So I kind of like that he's keeping that theme there.
yeah. I don't get this one. Howling
Is that
3
supposed to be him?
Echoes.
Is that supposed to be him changing his face changing and stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. Um,
And he's all distorted and stuff. It's not a great cover. And if I saw that, I would almost wonder if I was looking at a vampire book.
you're right. Yeah, yeah. It looks
Uh,
definitely more vampire. Um,
so yeah, I mean, you're at Howling 3, so you're gonna be like, okay, well, I assume, because
yeah.
one and two, but and did the second one have a title, a
N-
subtitle like Echoes?
No,
Because I don't remember that happening either. So it
no.
definitely feels weird. Now maybe new characters, new idea, and he's trying to say, hey, this is a little different. And I wonder, is this a case of like he wanted to write other stuff and people are like, hey, you got to write another Howling book? So then he's like,
Yeah,
all right. So
yeah. And then this is
this
the new covers that I hate.
Yeah,
you hate.
the worst covers, man. Hey, let's do something to make sure people don't buy this book. All right, here we go.
Yeah. And then
Like,
there's
this is
this one.
perfect. I think this was a hardcover. I
Okay.
saw one that was turned a little bit and it looked like it was a dust jacket. So I thought, okay, and I found this one and copied it.
This one looks like a
Giant dog, right?
yeah, there's a specific dog that I'm thinking of when I see this.
Like a sheephound or something, like a
Some kind of
sheepdog. I
like
mean,
a terrier, some kind of
yeah,
terrier.
you're right. Like a tiny dog.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's a
So,
terrible cover. I mean,
yeah.
it's fine. Whatever. I hate to say that because somebody put work into this and stuff.
Yeah.
But out of all of them, the first one's the only one where if I would have, it would have caught my eye immediately and then had me slow down enough to look at it. The rest of these, I'm just like, what is this? What is this? What is, you know?
Yeah.
Or maybe they're so terrible that's why you stop and look at it. I guess I don't know, but um,
Yeah.
I was surprised the way this one ends. It ends so open that he could easily start a fourth one, picking up right where he left off. So
Yeah.
I was surprised to find out that there wasn't another Howling out there. But I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever seen a Howling 4 in the books, so
Mm-mm.
I could be wrong. But um, yeah, overall, we did the Werewolf Project, and I don't think I could have been more disappointed with all of the swings and misses we had. But
Yeah.
the gems out of it, unfortunately, were all written by the same guy about the exact same place with almost always the same characters. Luckily, we got some new ones in this third one, but I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know what that says. I don't, you know. Now that doesn't take away. We were trying to do classic werewolf stories. I don't want to take away from any because there are a lot of really cool indie horror werewolf stories and newer stuff with werewolves that would would be probably more to our liking, but they
Mm-hmm.
didn't fit what we were trying to do. So
Yeah. Yeah. Retro. So yeah. But yeah, it's definitely worth a read. Um,
the whole series is, I mean, it's fun.
yeah.
I'd sit, I mean, it's one of those that I'm always happy is on my bookshelf that I have
Mm-hmm.
those, especially
Yeah.
now it's easier to get a hold of everything. But when I got a hold of the first two, I know they were out of print and I thought it was, I mean, I've got like double copies of all of them because anytime I saw it, I would grab one. So
Yeah. Yeah. But it was a great way to end our werewolf series. I'm glad we didn't end on a dud.
yeah,
So, yeah. Okay, now it is time for our Not Stephen King book of the week, which I have chosen The House of Smarba by Mike Duke. This is a really interesting book. I actually beta read it last year for Mike, and he, changed some things around, and it was just released this year. So what happens is this family is out and they break down in front of a house, and they go in this house and get some help, and it's kind of creepy. So then they go home, and it's a mother and a father, a little girl and their son, and the daughter ends up dying. She gets hit by a car. And time goes on, and the mom thinks she's crazy because she keeps seeing the car that hit the little girl, but every time she goes to where the truck went, it's no longer there. It basically keeps disappearing. And then she just randomly finds this like pendant that her daughter used to wear in the middle of the road. So then they move, and they end up actually moving into the house that they stopped at when they broke down. Um, and as you could see, or as you could tell, it ends up being some kind of a possession type um, story. There is one of the best fight scenes ever. It's all these classic toys come to life because the little kid, he finds these toys in his closet, and it's all things from like when we were kids, Stretch Armstrong, um, the Rock'em Sock'em robots. So it's all these classic toys, and they come to life, and they have this giant battle with the parents, like all these like, you know, crazy toys come to life. It's about it's possession. It's got a little bit of a cult um, part to it, so there's a cult involved with it. it's just really great. And the main bad person takes the form of a lion. So that's why there's the lion there on the cover. Um, so yeah, I read it again not too long ago because we were doing a group read for it, and I just got to refresh my mind on it and get the changes that Mike had made between last year and when it was released. And it's a great book. It's fun. There's a lot of retro in it. Um, so if you're a kid from the 80s, those toys will bring you right back.
Sure.
Um,
You're always
so
gonna have a
that
good time with Mike. Mike's a good writer. Good
Oh
guy.
yeah, he is. Yeah, and it actually creeped me out because the the Stretch Armstrong. I don't know if you remember Stretch
Hmm.
Armstrong, but there was like a monster, like a see-through monster one. My brother had that, so I was like, oh, I had this creepy thing in my house when I was
That's
younger.
cool. That's always fun when you can connect that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, Mike's a great guy. So
yeah,
everybody should go out and check it out. It's on my bookshelf to read. So
yeah,
yeah, the cover's awesome, and
yeah. I
the
love
whole
this
idea of
cover.
it's really cool.
Yeah, it's a really fun book. And you get a little bit of everything. You get cult, you get possession, you get like ghosts. So it's great. It's really good. So check it
Very
out.
cool.
We'll have a link to it down in the description
Yep.
of the video. And thanks for joining us for another episode.
Take it easy.